I've been listening to your work since January pretty heavily, and it's been really helpful. What I've noticed is in the past, I've had this tendency to ask a lot of questions, and it tends to come up when, like if I hear something that I don't quite understand or it makes me feel a little bit uncertain or insecure, I tend to almost attack that person with questions, and I don't like the way it feels.
Well, maybe you're attacking them with questions, and maybe you're clarifying for the purpose of feeling better. When your beliefs are being challenged, and so the gap between what you really know and what's active right now is being accentuated, then clarification is a good thing, not a bad thing. So don't be hard on yourself about reaching for clarification. Just notice or acknowledge that your intent is to soothe yourself rather than to push against them, which we can feel as we visit with you is what's going on. In the past, when you've done that, others have accused you of accusing them, but that doesn't feel at all like what you're doing. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Clarification is a good thing. When you get on a roll, we were talking about this a few days ago on the cruise ship. This is what step 5 really is. Step 1 is ask. Contrast causes you to do that. Step 2 is source answers. That's the vortex and all the cooperative components. Step 3 is you get in the receptive mode where you allow yourself to receive. Step 4 is you own that. You've practiced it. It's steady. You're there mostly. And step 5 is you are now willing to stop beating up on yourself for more questions and more problems that produce more answers and more solutions. You begin to accept that it's all part of the important process, and that without a question there cannot be an answer, and without a further probing question there cannot be a further clarifying answer. It's all part of the deliciousness. You see, your leading edge, you didn't come just to say, oh, okay, I get it, that's it. This is it. You want more. You are ravenous with desire for expansion, which means let your brilliant logical mind produce those questions that will lead you to answers that are so satisfying as that process is taking place.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if those questions are coming more from my thinking brain versus my feeling?
How do you know the difference? Your brain thinks and your brain translates, and lots of times when you get an idea, in other words, here Esther is offering all of this, and she's receiving it from Abraham, but if it were not for her vocabulary, if it were not for her grounding, if it were not for her awareness of life experience, if she were not integrated in this life experience, if she didn't have a brain that could translate impulses and thoughts into words, in other words, for months, Esther was receiving us clearly, worried that she was making it up. So she just kept breathing the thought impulse away. Finally, we had to move her nose around like a chalk on a chalkboard before she acknowledged that she was really getting something, though she was not directing the thought about. So don't be too worried about that. Just feel for the feeling of the content of it. And if you feel an eagerness in it, it's source flowing through you and you're translating. If it feels critical, it's probably your mother.
And my final question, or the last question I have for you right now is, sometimes I'm in the presence of people that are not quite so positive thinking, and I sometimes don't even know what to say. Is it okay just to say nothing?
Yes, or say to yourself, they're in a step 1 mode. They might produce a really good question to which I might receive a really good answer, and we're all in this together, and I'm stable enough that I don't need the condition to be perfect in order for me to be in alignment. Oh, there's such a freedom in that. If negative people are driving you nuts, it's because you're wobbly. It's because you're not sure about your vibration, and so you need them. You're depending on their positive focus in a sort of a conditional way in order to feel good. But if you can stand in the midst of something that isn't that positive and look for the nugget in it and feel appreciation for the existence of it, and maybe even acknowledge that you've been there too and that it's not a bad thing, as you give other people permission to feel their negative emotion, at the same time you give yourself permission to feel your negative emotion. And giving yourself permission, not only permission, but joyous acknowledgement that negative emotion is a good thing. That's really helpful. But if you get down on anybody that's having a hard time, then you're hard on yourself whenever you're having a hard time. Sort of like Esther will hear people being critical about elderly or about age. And as she's walking through a conversation like that, she'll say, that's going to bite you in the butt someday. Because they're all going to move through time. And if you're practicing disdain about moving through time, if you're practicing the idea of decline or deficiency about moving through time, as you move through time, you're going to be in trouble with the beliefs that you have practiced about life in general, you see. So the more allowing you are, and we don't mean allowing because you're trying to give them a break. Sometimes they're really annoying. We don't mean that. But we mean allowing in the sense that all of it makes the world go round. And the less you focus on it and care about it, then the less active that will be in your vibration. And the less active that is in your vibration, then the fewer of those kinds of incidences you will attract into your own experience. Ooh. Embrace and revel in the variety of your world, because all the good stuff is coming out of it, you see. Helpful?
Very. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Can you change a condition right now? Sometimes if you put enough leverage and action and stuff into it, but can you change an idea now? Sometimes it depends on the momentum of it. Can you find something that feels a little better now if you try just a little? That you can do for sure. And that's all this is about.